What up, Gavin? What a week
up?
of free agency, man, huh?
Absolutely incredible numbers.
Wait a minute. So, first day, absolutely nothing happens, right, in free agency. And everyone's losing their mind, and they come out on Thursday, and just signed the entire league. We had how many? 13 signings. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Last year,
by Friday. Evening.
Last year in the wave of free agency, we had one or two signings. Now we have 13 signings. That's mad.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy considering that we wasn't actually expecting the Raiders to be very active at this point in time. We was actually kind of thinking it might be a couple more weeks till we really kind of see a lot of people coming in, hitting, the last few waves. But to be honest with you, it's a pleasant surprise because there was plenty of holes that we needed to fill, and there probably still is some more holes to fill, but at least some of them have been addressed Thursday and Friday.
Yeah. Let's look at the signings though first. See how they fit. See if any of them are, because we have some good starter signings, but most of them has been backup, which is good because if we need backups, if someone gets hurt, what do? You know what I mean? Look at the offensive side: Jordy Nelson, Doug Martin, Keith Smith, Derek Carrier, Griff Whalen. On defense is Rashad Melvin, Marcus Gilchrist, Tahir Whitehead, Tank Carradine, Kyle Wilbert, Sharice Wright. Then you have re-signings of Justin Ellis, Lee Smith. And we got a punter, Andrew DePaulo, and I don't know if that's the punter or the center. And
that's the long snapper.
That's the long snapper. And Colby Wadman is another black punter, which you don't see.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at these names in front of me right now.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I'm impressed with some of them because our special teams needed to get better this year. And we've brought in key special teams players from the Cowboys and a couple of the other teams who can really shore up that sort of area for the Raiders. It's no secret we needed to get better on special teams. We've never been the worst special teams in terms of talent, but I think we needed to take it up a notch a little bit.
Well, let's look at the starters. We got Jordy Nelson, a swab for Crabtree. We'll get into that later. So that's the only start. Well, we re-signed Lee Smith, right?
Yeah.
So we have he's going to start, I'm guessing, because he's going to want to run the ball. Gruden's been talking about getting blocking tight end, so that's your blocking tight end right there. So Jordy Nelson, Lee Smith, then Doug Martin will be running back 2 or 3. He'll fight it out with the little guys. I think it's going to be Doug Martin, DeAndre Washington, Jalen Richard, and whoever, and one of them gets cut. I have a feeling. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think there's too many bodies there at the moment because the draft this year is so packed full of really good running backs. You can't miss out on a draft like this. So one of them, in my opinion, will get cut. You don't bring in Doug Martin and keep Lynch, like if you're not going to address it elsewhere as well. They're all different sort of types of back. Lynch is obviously your traditional cowbell back who's going to just fight for every yard. Doug Martin, I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen enough of him to make an assessment of him. But he looked, from what I see, a little bit different to Lynch. And then you've got obviously the two guys who are pretty similar in terms of the way they run, except for maybe Washington is more of a traditional running back, whereas Richard is a bit more flexible. But yeah, I think out of all of them names, it's obviously we've spoke about before, Washington or Richard. One of them, in my opinion, will get cut because the draft this year is so lit with talent. I think maybe Washington, just because they might feel they can bring in a guy who can be similar but do a lot more than him. Whereas I've heard that they quite like Rashad, obviously, for special teams as well.
Special teams. He hasn't done really well lately. I wouldn't put him there. But hey.
No. But, it's one of those things. Some people see things differently, but I mean, I wouldn't obviously like him to be on special teams because of the last year, but some coaches like him there, so who knows?
Okay. I think DeAndre Washington, Doug Martin, they're both a little type similar. Jalen Richard is a little bit more nifty. And we don't know what we're getting from Elijah Hood, but he runs between the tackles. He did that in Duke as well. So that's something to watch out for, man. Who else we got? Let's see. And Derek Carrier is a tight end. He might be a camp cut, so he's just there for depth. And like I said, let me speak on this because you could have a team full of starters. One guy goes down, you bring in the backup, and he's not even quality backup. That position turns into a weakness from a strength real quick. So you gotta have somebody. And look at the Eagles, man. Their left tackle went down, and someone else stepped in, and they were fine. So you got, and I think what Gruden's doing is just making sure there's key pieces in the right places that if somebody goes down, we have somebody who can step in. And these are a lot of the backup signings we'll see. So we have two real starters, one signing, one re-signing in offense, joining us, Lee Smith. Defense, where we improved a lot. We signed a starting left cornerback, Rashawn Melvin. If you don't know who he is, he was with the Colts, and he did a tremendous job against. Go watch, if you have an NFL Game Pass, go watch last year's game against the Houston Texans and Pittsburgh Steelers. He pretty much shut down. I got a tweet from someone I forget, but it said Rashawn Melvin shadowed Antonio Brown on 88% of his routes. Brown had 2 catches on 4 targets for 42 yards. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, well, he's one of the best wide receivers in the league, so to shut him down is some feat, really.
And the game I saw, I went back right after the signing, and I watched the game on NFL Game Pass with Houston, and he destroyed DeAndre Hopkins. So that's just pretty good. He is a really, to get him for $6.5 million a year, it's amazing. Yeah,
well, when you're throwing all these numbers around, you've seen some of the corners getting absolutely ridiculous amounts of money this year. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling how some of them have got that amount of money. To get someone who is probably Pro Bowl caliber, in my opinion, if he has another good season as well, he could easily be in a Pro Bowl and stuff. So 6.5 million doesn't really seem a lot of money, to be honest with you, considering TJ Carey was on around the same, wasn't he?
Listen, Sean Smith got $8 million, and he was nowhere near. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And we got him for much cheaper.
Yeah, so that means that Reggie McKenzie is doing an absolutely brilliant job of just spending money wisely. He's not throwing it at players like all the other teams. I know we haven't got the most amount of cap space, but he's using it wisely, and he structures the contracts in a way that allows them to get out of it, or if it's a 2-year deal, not all of it's guaranteed and doesn't affect the cap as much. So, I mean, you've got to give the guy some credit in this free agency so far.
No, and I'll tell you something. The first Tremaine Johnson signed for how much? A lot of money, right? I forget the exact amount, but the Raiders' top 10. The first 10 free agent signings cost less than Tremaine Johnson. That's what a good move. And you got to give up to Reggie for not going after that. You're getting so much depth, and at least 4 starters out of this, and you're still paying less than what. Who got Tremaine Johnson? I don't know who they got, but they paid for him. It's ridiculous that they paid one guy that much money when Reggie went out and got Melvin, who's a better, probably pretty much the same player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very similar in terms of play, but I think if you watch the whole of last season, Melvin was better than Tremaine Johnson, in my opinion, and probably many others' opinion as well. So
he definitely was.
It definitely differed opinion on Tremaine Johnson. A lot of people wanted him. I wanted him personally because were so desperate to bring in a corner. But this is why Reggie leaves it a little bit later. He sees what's going on in the market, and then he jumps. He doesn't jump the gun before everybody else. He waits, he observes, and then boom, he gets in there, gets these players in. And I mean, we've read out all these 10 players. Some of them will be starting, some of them will be depth or cuts in training camp or whenever.
He's bringing in competition.
To get all these players for the same amount that we would have paid a corner who is probably a decent corner, but he's not that next tier really, is he? He's not like Marcus Peters or anyone like that. So get these players for the same amount is a very good job. Yeah.
Tahir Whitehead is the other starter on the probably. If everything stays the same, if the season started today, I think Tahir Whitehead would start as outside linebacker with Lee, our 5th round draft pick from last year, as a starting middle linebacker. Tahir Whitehead everybody loves him. You see his jerseys everywhere. The Lions fans love him, so that says a lot. He's a great locker room guy, and I think he was top 10 in the league in run stoppage, so he'll play more closer to the line.
Yeah.
One thing that worries me is his coverage ability. I think you got to put him in zone coverage underneath, maybe as a middle linebacker. If we draft a linebacker, outside linebacker in the draft, maybe he'll play middle linebacker and worry about the run more. But to stop the run, he's perfect. He's competitive. He's a good guy, from what I've heard. From Lions fans. So I think we got a good one. We still don't have someone to target tight ends in the line, cover tight ends from the linebacker position. But I was looking at his grades. He has a 79.6 PFF grade. His run defense grade was 87.6, and his coverage grade is 45.5, which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I think you'll scheme around it. If you look at Gunther's linebackers, they're not asked to cover man-to-man a lot. So I'm trusting Gunther. We'll see what happens. And I just don't know why Navarro. And regarding Navarro Bowman, I've heard that the Raiders made him an offer, but he's not too happy with it. So he's trying to see if he can get a better number and come back to the Raiders. That's what Vic Tafur said. Get a number from another team, come back to the Raiders and say, look, this is what I'm being offered. Match it. And I think that's the agreement they had.
Yeah, this could be the last contract for Bowman. If he gets 2 or 3 years or something like that, this could be like his last sort of big contract. So he's got to weigh up for himself. I know people say that players get a load of money anyway, but it's a short career really in terms of years and stuff. So
it has to last you.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest with you, he showed out last year when he comes to the Raiders. So he's worthy of getting paid, in my opinion. When you see some of these other guys getting paid and they didn't do pretty much nothing last year, he's deserving of a decent contract. There's no two ways about it, is there?
Yeah, no. And look at his career, man. It's just in his head, he can line up an entire defense by himself. He can let the young guys play. Nobody else has to worry about where to line up because he's a smart guy. He's been doing it at an all-pro level, right? He can teach the young linebackers. He can get everybody set up in defense. He's the quarterback of the defense. I would give him $5 million, but I don't know what Reggie had in mind. Problem is Reggie and the linebacker and Gunther they don't really value linebackers early. Both of them have come out and said they don't like taking linebackers early. So